What is up, everybody? It's Two Lock Sports here with another free picks and pivots video breakdown today from Win Daily Sports. Got a nice little 6-game slate here tonight after last night's massive 10-gamer where we had, frankly, kind of a typical NBA slate. If you guys have played NBA DFS for a while, you know now that you get these slates where there's just no news and things come late. We got the Kawhi news well after lock, the Jamal Murray news way after lock. And listen, those are guys that have massive impacts. If we had known before lock that Kawhi was out, guys like Paul George and Lou Williams would have become super popular plays. If we knew Jamal Murray was out, Monty Morris would have been a chalky value play. Joker would have been one of the best pay-up plays on the slate with all his extra usage. So, I think we talked about this a little bit in Discord yesterday, right before lock, and I wanted to just bring this up for those of you who aren't in our Discord. If you're not, come get a 7-day free trial. There's no reason not to. Come check us out. We were talking about this yesterday where, frankly, I didn't feel great about any of the 7 o'clock games. Other than really Westbrook was the one guy I think most of us talked about wanting to make sure we locked in. A couple guys were, we talked about kind of some other plays here and there, but it wasn't like there was this guy that was a must play in those early games. So we talked a lot about backloading your lineups and making it where you had flexibility later in the day and using the late swap to your advantage. And that's always something you can do. I know a lot of guys in the Discord yesterday was like, 10, 15 minutes before lock, and they're feeling like they have to be done, but you don't have to be. And that's the beauty of kind of the late swap is you use that to your advantage. If you're not in love with those early games, especially on those 10-game slates, don't play any of those first 5 games, make it a 5-game late slate and wait for the news. So it's something you can absolutely do. But tonight we have a 6-game slate. We're going to do this, another free video here. Go out to Win Daily Sports right now. You can grab your limited time offer right here. We've been talking about it the last couple days. There's only a few days left of this, guys. You can get $20 a month for the next 7 months, not just our NBA, every single sport that we have here. The rest of the NFL playoffs. We've got PGA, we've got MMA, we've got esports, we've got MLB coming up soon. Guys, there's really no reason, not to go and grab this. If you have not checked us out, make sure that you go and do that. So head out to our page right now. You can see here we've got all 3 of our NBA articles out. Ghost DFS GPP Gems. We got our cash game breakdown from Stoby, and we got Picks and Pivots, my article. So we are going to head over to the projections. First stop every single day. I know there's been a lot of news kind of right as I'm coming on, so we're going to flip back to this. You can see right now the latest update was as of 11:03. It's one of the best parts about this is when the updates are coming in is right here at the top of the screen. Right as before I came on, we got news that Jason Tatum is questionable and LaMarcus Aldridge is questionable, and Tristan Thompson is out. So you're starting to get this 1 o'clock news push where this could really change things right now. If Jason Tatum is out, Jaylen Brown is going to become one of the most popular plays on the slate. If LaMarcus Aldridge is out, all of a sudden you'll see people talking about DeMar DeRozan when they were probably not talking about him at all before. One of the things you notice with NBA, we haven't really had a slate like this with a lot of news kind of pre-lock that was unexpected. Tatum and Aldridge would be unexpected news for sure. But I think one of the things you see if you've been around the NBA scene for a while is people tend to overreact to the day's news. So all of a sudden, Jaylen Brown wasn't on anyone's radar. Now he'll become super chalky, right? And so, but yet, and I think we'll talk about this in a moment, but for me, I had a first look on this slate where I liked a certain core group of guys. If now, sometimes this news is the best thing that can happen. Because guess what? If I was on players X, Y, and Z before, and now all of a sudden this news brings everybody over to players, A, B, and C, great. You guys go over there. I'll chill over here with the guys that I was going to play all along, and I'm good to go because you just took all the ownership with you. So let's talk a little bit about kind of this slate tonight because I think it's a good one. It's a 6-game slate. These are kind of the sweet spots when you get into NBA where you're not in these massive double-digit slates. It's not a 2 or a 3 gamer. this is kind of the perfect spot. And I think, when we talk about bankroll management and things like that, these are the slates I think I tend to go a little bit heavier on because they are a lot, I think, easier to come up with a core and, really build around and really take the time to dive into. So if you look at this slate, first things first, it starts at 7:30 tonight. So remember that today, when you are looking for your lineups, we don't have to lock at 7 p.m. Eastern. You got an extra 30 minutes. I mentioned this in my article today, but what's interesting is that 5 of the 6 games all start within this first hour. So, we talked about the idea of backloading your lineups potentially to deal with late swap. Just be careful because tonight you don't really have that benefit, right? You got 5 of the 6 games are at 8:30. So if you kind of wait, all of a sudden you're going to be very, very limited in your choices with Portland and the Clippers playing later in the night. So if you look at this slate, I talked about it today. To me, what stood out the most was Atlanta and Brooklyn right off the bat. This is the game. It's got everything you want, and you kind of check the boxes. It's got the high total. It had a near 240 total as of this morning. You've got the highest projected pace. You have 2 teams that have played at a high pace, not just this year, not just this year, but also last year. So these are teams that are going to play at top 10 paces. So right away, this was a game that I looked at, and what was amazing is when you do that, the pricing is just out of control. And I just don't understand it, to be totally honest with you. I don't get how in a pace-up spot against Atlanta, Kevin Durant is $8,400 and Kyrie Irving is $8,900. I'm sorry, I don't get it. So for me, those are the 2 first guys that I want in my lineup. So again, I'm going to bring those guys in right away. I'm going to put them in we've talked about this when you're building, right? Use the positions first, leave guard, forward, and utility till last so that you maximize the flexibility in your builds. So if I want Kyrie and I want Durant, and I talk about this, we were talking about this today in Discord, a lot of people were locking in on them and then moving elsewhere. I'm like, wait a second, guys, you got to have, to me, you have to have Trey Young in this build. And the reason is we saw it last night, and we've seen it a few times so far this year. We saw it last night with Giannis. Superstars don't hit their ceiling if they don't play all 4 quarters. So if that's the case, you need Atlanta to keep this game close. And the only way that I can see Atlanta doing that is if Trey Young has a ceiling type game. And then now this becomes the ideal run back where you've got Trey Young, shootout with Kyrie and Durant. All of these guys are priced at a point where they can hit their ceiling. And guys, look at that average remaining salary. You have $4.6K for the rest of your build. It's too easy to do. It's partially why I was smiling as I'm seeing the Jason Tatum news come up. I hope Jaylen Brown becomes everybody's favorite play, and I hope everybody goes and jams in DeMar DeRozan because that's fine. Have them. I'll take these 3 guys in the best spot of the night, and I will play them, and I hope the ownership goes elsewhere. I really do. This game is very interesting because I think beyond it, if you look at the pricing, you see Collins and you see LeVert. That's really the only people that are kind of quote unquote priced up. There's not a lot here. So this becomes a game you can game stack relatively simply. And it's really not that difficult to do just because of how the pricing works, right? Now, if you work your way down, I think, we need a little bit of news here. But the way that I would approach it is this. John Collins to me is an absolute no-go. With Clint Capella back, the rebounding upside is capped. You've seen so far this year, he's been in foul trouble every single game. And Ghost pointed it out. Kevin Durant is one of the best players at drawing fouls from his opponents. Now you've got a guy who's super handsy guarding Kevin Durant, and he struggled already this year. I don't see the path for him. I'm not paying $7K for him. Karis LeVert, great, was obviously the nuts play the other night. Everybody knew it. He was like a gajillion % owned for good reason. While I like him, I don't, to me, he becomes a pivot off of Kyrie or Durant. But the reality is, I don't I don't see myself going there because the price savings isn't that significant. Why would I pay nearly 7K for LeVert when I can go to Durant for 8K? It's just you don't get enough of a savings, in my opinion, to take the lesser player. And while I like LeVert, he's not Kevin Durant. Let's just be honest. After that, Clint Capella, I did see the alert as we're sitting here that he will play. I'm just not sure that I'm going to get 6K for him, and we don't really know his minutes. They talked about that kind of getting staggered up. I'm probably not going to go there. I think really where I start to sit is when you get to this 5K range and below. This is probably where I'll get most of my secondary exposure to this game. It sounds like Danilo Gallinari will play tonight. And I think really what he does to me is he just kind of muddies it up. I don't know that I want to necessarily play him, but our projections the other night once Gallinari went out, everything popped for Bogdanovic. If Gallo were to be out again, I mean, Bogdanovic would be a fantastic play once again. But I think like these three wings that you're seeing right here on Atlanta, Gallinari, Hunter, and Bogdanovic, all will kind of cap each other's upside. And sure, like they're all cheap enough where I think you can take shots on them, but it really is a lot of a dice roll if all three of them are in. The Brooklyn side, the guys that I really like, I love Joe Harris in this spot. Now without Dinwiddie there in the lineup, you watch those first couple games, and I grew up a Nets fan growing up in New Jersey, and outside of a couple little runs there, the Jason Kidd years, the Nets have not been a team that have been must-watch TV. They are right now, and watching these games, those first couple games to see how they were spacing the court and they were using Harris and they were using Dinwiddie to get the open shots. Once you kind of look at this, how this team is built, if Joe Harris is off on the wings, he becomes now their primary shooter where now Dinwiddie's gone. And yes, they're going to have TLC on the wings. We were all over TLC the other night. I'm not doing it tonight. I am going to stay right here with Joe Harris. In the first couple of games, one of the things that really stood out to me was the peripheral stats for him. He was crashing the boards. He was getting a lot of easy rebounds, and this Brooklyn team is going to push. So, this is where I want to go with Joe Harris. The other guy that I talked about here was DeAndre Jordan. And I really, really like this spot for him. One, because of the price. I think it's a great price discount off of Jared Allen. I mean, Jared Allen at 57 versus DJ at 46. I mentioned it in my article. What you're going to see tonight is Atlanta can play big, right? They've got Capella and they've got John Collins. And I think when they have those traditional bigs, you're going to see DeAndre Jordan on the floor more. And while it's not the perfect example the other night against Memphis because both Kyrie and Durant were out, but let's be honest, them being on or off the floor really shouldn't impact his play necessarily. Now it might give him more usage, but him playing 30 minutes in that game was really a direct correlation to the fact that they had Jonas Valanciunas on the other side, and they were matching girth for girth. So tonight, if you have Jonathan Collins out there and you have Clint Capella out there, you're going to have a lot of DeAndre Jordan. And I think at 4,600, you could get another night of him around 30 minutes with a 6X plus upside. Easy for him tonight. So I love him as a cheap center spot. It's a lot of Brooklyn, but a lot of it is I just think that the pricing is just far too cheap. On the Atlanta side, the one guy that I do like is Cam Reddish. If you look at the other wings for Atlanta, where you got Bogdanovic, you got Hunter, and you've got Gallo. Those three, if you look at the rotations and the game flow, they essentially cannibalize each other. They come in and out for each other. Where Cam Reddish really is not going to be impacted by them being there. His direct sub is typically Kevin Huerter. So if you have these other guys kind of all they're making, just taking the usage away from each other, Reddish is a cheap option. He's the cheapest, actually, of all of those wing-type players. And if he's going to get that backcourt run alongside Trae Young, he's an easy piece. My perspective on Atlanta is I'm not in love with anyone other than Trae Young. He feels like the only guy I absolutely have to have. But if I'm going this route, it'll probably be Reddish, assuming all of these guys are in on the Atlanta side. If Gallo were to be out, I would probably prefer Bogdanovich as my second guy in. So we will take a look a little bit more. So that's kind of, to me tonight, this is the game that I want to start with. It's the game that I think has the most shootout potential, and I think it is the best spot to attack both from an upside perspective and from a point per dollar perspective. If you look at this, and we've talked about this when we've done lineup reviews the last few days, you need to have multiple high-end stars. This build has 3 of them. And then if you use those 3 high-end stars, you've got all this kind of cheap value that sits around them. So love this spot. Love how this game flows tonight. So a couple questions that have come in. Durant is a must-play on DK, right? Yes, 100%, Jeffrey. I see your comment there. Yes, Durant is far, far, far too cheap. Aldridge questionable. If James sits, AD is cheap. That is true. Still be the James birthday narrative. Yep, LeBron birthday narrative for sure. And then Jordan. I'll put this question up on the screen because it's a good one. Do you play THJ or do you play Giannis? Listen, there's a lot of shows around the industry that would tell you that Giannis is the better play, but you guys aren't here for just any old show. So I think if you guys know me at all by now, you know that my answer is going to be Mr. Hardaway Jr. I would play Tim Hardaway Sr. tonight if I could. So I want to touch on that game real quick because that game realistically has some nice pieces too. But a little bit of it is, I talked about it in my article today. It's going to be a bit of news driven. So we have Charlotte and we have Dallas in this game. Now, the big piece of news for me is the status of Josh Richardson. And I bring that up because if you look at Dallas, this offense right now, without Porzingis, is literally 3 people. And I'm not just bringing up THJ because I'm a fanboy and I'm contractually obligated to do so. Guys, if Richardson's not there, who else is shooting the ball on that team? Go ahead, look. Well, here, I'll scroll down. You can look. Tell me who's shooting. Dorian Finney-Smith? No. Dwight Powell? The Boban? Maxi Kleber? Guys, these guys aren't shooting. So I think if Richardson is out, I want to have a lot of exposure to the secondary scorers here. I mean, obviously, Luka's a fantastic play. But if my core is going to be guys like Durant, guys like Kyrie, and guys like Trae Young, I can't also get Luka. So if I'm going to go this route, the guys that I'm really interested in, and I brought these guys up today in my article, are these 2. THJ, we've seen it. This offense has the ability to demand 2 high usage plays. And this is a spot where, without having Porzingis on the floor, without potentially having Richardson on the floor, Hardaway will command a ton of usage and a ton of field goal attempts. And that volume is really appealing. The other guy you can go to is Trey Burke. He becomes a direct sub if you look at the game flows. And I talk about game flows all the time. Popcorn Machine is a free website. Go out, popcornmachine.com. Go out there. I use it all the time. It is the best way for you as a DFS player to learn the rotations, to understand substitution patterns, and to start to get an idea of, if X player is out, who would benefit player Y. It's not always as easy as you might think. We talked about it a little bit yesterday in Discord when we saw the news that George Hill was hurt. I was all over Diallo, and he was somebody that, even without him getting the starting nod, you knew that he would have the role to play there, and he ended up going for 7-8x's price point. He was one of our favorite value plays. We talked about it in Discord. He was in our projections, popping last night. I could see Trey Burke having a very similar role tonight if Josh Richardson is out. So, the other so Nicholas, I saw your question, and Big T, how about the Nets blowout? I mean, sure, guys. I'm not going to play a Nets blowout angle. You can if you want to. It's not a route that I tend to go, and I'm just going to look up here what the spread is because, listen, there's a lot smarter people in the world than me. So that game has a 5.5 point spread. So if Vegas is telling you that game is going to stay close, why would I argue with it? Sure. Can they blow them out? Of course they can. The Nets are loaded, and the Nets are a really, really strong team. But I don't understand why, you would want to go yeah, I wouldn't stay away from that game to play the blowout angle because there's been plenty of games and you've seen it. I mean, did anyone think the Knicks were going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks by 20? I mean, last night that Bucks Heat game was expected to be close, and the Bucks shot a bajillion% from the floor, and they were up by 100 before halftime. Blowouts happen, guys. You just can't. And Stobie's right. And building based on blowouts is not a smart idea. You can take a stand if you want sometimes and cross games off your list. On a 6-game slate where Brooklyn and Atlanta, in my opinion, is the best game on the slate, playing the blowout angle, I just don't think is something that we need to do. So as we're sitting here we go. Here comes the news because it was going to happen. We're just seeing here Jimmy Butler is now out. I think that is huge. It was huge yesterday, and it is huge today. So let's go back because this is easy. I didn't even have to prep for this because I did all this work yesterday. So with Jimmy Butler now, we're getting this news now that he is out. I think you go right back to where it was yesterday, right? It's, from a Miami perspective, it's the exact same plays we talked about yesterday with Dragic and Hero. Two guys, again, sitting here in this mid 5K range. You've got these guys sitting there. You can run it back with Mr. Giannis and you're off and running. I mean, it's kind of the same build that we talked about yesterday. This to me just makes a ton of sense. I have absolutely no problem going with this route. The only thing is, so let's just see. I don't think it can be done, but we'll do it live. Why not? I'm going to try. I would try this after I would get off this video anyway. So let's go with my core and then see. Can I get Giannis? I can get Giannis, but then I can't get anything else. Don't think you can do that. That seems a little bit aggressive, guys. I definitely like the thought here of maybe going and seeing what I can get. I don't think I'm going to get enough 3K value to make that work. Maybe we will. But again, what's interesting about this is, and I'm going to go back to this one more time. I woke up this morning and the very first thing that I did, and it's part of why I do it as a first look build. And I think it's a really important part of your process to go in and get things before the industry has had a chance to kind of feed you information, right? And that's what I do. I do my article. I do all my research before I've read anything, listened to anybody else, even jumped in Discord, listening to our own experts. I don't do it. I want my own take. So I woke up this morning and the very first thing that I did was this. I put in Trey, I put in Durant, and I put in Kyrie Irving, right? So now, as we're sitting here in the last hour, we've learned that Jimmy Butler's out, which will now make people go potentially back to the Miami guys. And listen, in this build, it actually might make some sense because they are still super cheap. So you could rock Hero and you can rock Dragic, right? You still have 4K. This build makes a lot of sense. You don't necessarily have to have the Giannis run back if you don't want to. I don't know if Middleton is cheap and would work in this. Nope, 2,400 doesn't work. So you'd have to sacrifice somewhere else. But as all this news comes through, I think what you have to think about now is, will everyone overreact to it? History would tell us that they will. Most people are going to see the news come through and they're going to overreact to somebody like a Jaylen Brown. They're going to now overreact. You're going to get a lot more Milwaukee and Miami plays now than you would have if Jimmy Butler was in. So let's just take a look. I know Ghost, while we were talking, updated the projections. Now they are not going to have the Jimmy Butler news because it literally just happened. So I don't expect my man Ghost to be on the ready that quickly. So these were updated at 118. So about 15 minutes ago. And there's your boy Jimmy Butler right at the top of the value. But obviously that'll change, guys, right? That's going to change. And now the value is going to be very different. But here's some interesting pieces that we should talk about. So if you're talking about some true cheap pieces, this Jeff Teague news is really with them trending with Tatum out. Right now, all of a sudden, you have Jeff Teague under 4K. He's projected for 6X. My man DJ called him out already before, so we talked about him. And then you've got James Johnson here. So this looks like it's already projecting for some added bumps with Richardson potentially being out. And you're seeing that because look who's right here, Trey Burke. So the model is already taking into account some of this news, and that's what it does. It, as the day goes on and we get news, it reflects that in here. So, I think what we will start to see now is there's going to be a lot more value popping because of how many people you're seeing are getting ruled out. So how do I feel about Brandon Clark? Honestly, I don't know that I want to touch Memphis. My general feeling on Memphis was, if we go to them, with Morant being out, I feel like they kind of priced everybody already to account for the value that would be there. I love Joe Val today. I know Adam and Ghost have both been on him today as one of their favorite kind of GPP centers. I just personally, I'm not sure that I'll get there today. I love the play. If you have the salary, at center, I do like that play. For me, the guy that I would go on Memphis if I was to build anywhere is going to be Dillon Brooks. We saw it over the course of last year, and I'm not going to look just at the other night. I'm going to go back to last year. If you take John Moran off the floor, Dillon Brooks was the team leader in usage, and he was the guy the offense ran through. The other night, watching that game against Brooklyn, the offense ran through Kyle Anderson. I don't expect that to happen again. If you look at the larger data set, and we were talking about this today in Discord, over a 400-minute sample size last year with Triple J and John Morant off the floor, Kyle Anderson was a 15% usage player, putting up less than a fantasy point per minute. He's 6K now, guys. Go ahead, click on this. I've seen a bunch of people today in Discord saying he's like the lock of the night. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong. I think you're already paying the Kyle Anderson premium for a guy that is just frankly not a high usage player. And I don't think that this 40-point kind of performance that you've seen on back-to-back games is truly indicative of the type of player he's going to be in this offense. The larger data set would tell you it's not. So game log watchers are probably going to be all over Kyle Anderson. Have at it. I think DraftKings has priced him up to the point where I am simply not interested. And if he ends up being a chalky play, then I am happy to pivot to Dillon Brooks, who I think is a far better play tonight. So I only like Anderson if Tatum is out. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure that I agree. To me, I just think Anderson's overpriced. You look at the guys we just talked about. So bring up, I know they're not the exact perfect comparison, but on DraftKings where you have a ton of flexibility, I don't really look at position as much. Why would I pay $6,000 for Kyle Anderson when I can pay mid-fives for guys like Hero and Dragic, right? To me, those are better plays. So I think that's where I would rather go. I mean, if you have to go and do this from a position perspective, honestly, we talked about some of the guys on the Atlanta side. If you're talking about you need to fill in that small forward spot, I'd much rather go with Cam Reddish, to be perfectly honest with you. So I think this is setting up to be a really interesting slate, and I'm fascinated to see what will end up happening when we get the news for all of these players as we're waiting. But the amount of news that we've already gotten is probably going to make this slate very chalky. And I think it's going to be very reflective of the new news that you have. And if that's the case, and all of a sudden you see Boston draw a ton of ownership because of Tatum potentially being out, if you see San Antonio draw ownership because of LMA potentially being out, now that we know that Jimmy Butler's out, do we see Milwaukee and Miami draw that ownership? Guys, if that's true and all of that happens, I'm telling you right now, I will be all in on Atlanta and Brooklyn, and I don't see any reason to move off of it. It was the best game when I looked at it at 6 o'clock this morning. I still think it's the best game. So I'm fine if you want to grab pieces from these other games. I do like the Miami value. Once again, I think the 5K pieces for them are just far too cheap. So I see a question here. Will the cheat sheets be updated? So based off point guard value plays, guys, the best place for you to look come to Win Daily, the best place. I see this all the time in Discord. Do you like player X or do you like player Y? This is where you go answer, right? So you go right here, NBA, hit on projections, okay? We're going to do it. We're going to walk you through the process. You can go right here and right up top, you can click on DraftKings or FanDuel. Very easy. Which slate do you want? Captain, one of the captain modes, one of the smaller slates. We're just going to look at the main slate here. So for me, I would take a look at the point guard position, and right away, I mean, Teague is already popping. You've got Tyus Jones, which makes a ton of sense. My man Trey Burke is already out there. So I think that this becomes this becomes the best place for you guys to go in and get those answers. So Trent, thank you for asking that question. We try to, guys, we're in Discord all day trying to answer the questions, but a lot of times, this model is updating every 15 minutes. It's running behind the scenes and taking in the news and pushing out those new projections. So you'll see it, every time you go in, you'll see the last time that it was updated. This is the best place for you to go and look. Dal Poker says, are 4 nets too many? No, I don't think so. Listen, I think Kyrie and Durant obviously are the 2. I think it just depends on which other ones you go with. Like, I would not personally put LeVert in with the other 2 big stars. But I do think that you can make the case of using like a DeAndre Jordan, a Joe Harris, and maybe TLC, with him being priced at 4K, assuming he starts again. I don't hate it. I think this morning those guys looked like easy values. I'm not sure, as the slate's kind of breaking down, we might get better value now. So you might not necessarily need a Joe Harris because now, if I remember correctly, I'm going to go in here so that I can prove it to you guys. Yep. So Joe Harris is 5,100. To be honest with you, I would find the other $300 or $400 now that we know that Butler's out to get to Hero or to Dragic. I just think those are higher ceiling plays, kind of in that same range. So I think that is where I would go, kind of assuming that's the news we get. So looks like that is it in terms of questions, guys. Thank you for joining. Again, today, these videos have been a blast. If you have not, please head over to Win Daily Sports. I'm going to click on it one more time, show you one more time. Been doing it every day. Head over there right up top. You can join now, grab our gold membership. $20 a month gets you every single article, all of our projections, all of our expert chat in Discord, one-on-one coaching, and it gets you all of that for just $20 a month. Guys, I'm not sure what to tell you. Go look around the industry, try and find a better deal. Good luck, you're not going to. You're not going to find not only a better deal in terms of the dollars, but you're not going to get anywhere close to the high level amount of content that you're going to get here in the tools that we have. Come talk to our members. Jump in the Discord for 7 days. I've seen people do this, and I stay out of it when it comes up. Should I join? Somebody give me feedback. Go ask our members. We don't have to be the screenshot police here. Go out and ask them what they think. I think that that's kind of my perspective. Sorry, Maurice, I didn't realize. Ignoring my question. Oh, Grant Williams for Boston? Maybe. I don't know. Not sure that I love that. That feels like that might. Maybe. Sure. He's 3,300. I think it's perfectly fine. He's not a high usage guy. If you're playing the stars and scrubs approach, like you want to go back to what was the build we did before, where we were doing, let's see, where we had what, Giannis. Let's see if this works. It was Trey, it was Kyrie. It's easier if I click on the teams, make my life a lot easier. Let's get Durant. And where's Mr. Irving? So he could be a potential option for you in this kind of build. There you go. There's your 3,300. Now you got 3K left. I could see him in a build like that. Like we saw that with OKC last night, right, guys? Where all of a sudden you had all this value with guys like Roby and Muscala and Diallo. You had multiple 3K paths, and then all of a sudden, we were talking about in Discord the build where you take 2 or 3 of those cheap OKC guys, and all of a sudden it was super easy to go get Giannis and Russell Westbrook. So Maurice, this is exactly what I'm looking at. Good. This is why we do this, right? I mean, these shows I think are helpful when they become a little bit more interactive. As much as I like sitting here talking to myself in my office, it's helpful when you guys kind of come with these questions. So ABC with Hero or Dragic, why not both? They're going to stagger. They're going to play against, they're not going, they correlate well together because they're going to be staggered. We saw it last night. Hero will start, Dragic will come off the bench. I think it's perfect. You kind of get both players there, and the fact that they're still around 5K, I think both are fantastic plays. So that's it, guys. Head on over to Win Daily Sports. I'm going to head out of here. Jump into our Discord. Feel free to ask questions. If you have not gone and grabbed the gold membership, go do so. I hope you've enjoyed reading Picks and Pivots free the last few days. I hope you've enjoyed reading Ghost Gems, Adams, and Sobe's cash game breakdowns. Guys, these things are going behind the paywall in the new year. So if you've enjoyed them, if they've helped you win, if they've helped you learn how to make better NBA DFS lineups, this is what you're going to get if you join Win Daily Sports. Come and check us out. Let's crush again tonight. We're out of here.